Hey guys, Bada Bing here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to convert your Ishmash Bakelite 762x39 AK magazines to accept the GHK AKM gas blowback magazine internals. I've always wanted to do this mod, and in my opinion the Bakelite magazines looked better than the original steel ones, not to mention they are totally iconic. So thanks for joining me, comrades, and let's do this. At first I wasn't sure the GHK magazine internals would actually fit. Judging by the pictures of the Bakelite magazines I've researched, the curve of the magazine seemed a little extreme in comparison to the stock GHK mags. Upon comparing to a genuine steel AK magazine, it was clear that the main body was of the correct geometry, and only the stamped and welded spine made it appear different. Forgive the pun, but I bit the bullet and picked up a couple of Bakelite magazines to gut out. I got these from Cold War Collectibles, and if you're in the UK looking for AK parts, magazines, deacts and other things of that nature, it's worth taking a look. There's a link in the description if you're interested. Disclaimer: I'm not exactly very good with tools, or claim to be inexperienced in engineering anyway. I'm just some bozo with ideas and dreams. And as such, this isn't a complete how-to or remove exactly 5mm tutorial, but a rough guide so you can implement this to your own project. You'll need a hacksaw and some hand files. It also helps to have a Dremel, vise and perhaps even a rubber mallet. Now, there are two ways you can go about doing this mod, one of which leaves the gas blowback internals almost unmodified. Some areas may need rounding off in order for it to slide into the new Bakelite shell, but on the whole, it's a mere minute of fine crafting to enable this to work. The second method is permanent. This requires filing away two sides at the top of the gas tank. The original GHK stamped shell wraps tightly around the contours of the gas tank and in turn conforms to the mag well on the AK perfectly. Due to the ledges on either side of the gas tank and the fact that the Bakelite shell is obviously not designed to take it, you either have to shave off so much material off the Bakelite magazine in order for it and the gas blowback internals to fit into the rifle, or take off those side ledges and keep some meat on the Bakelite. I've decided to file off those ledges on the GHK magazine and make it permanent, but it will create a smoother mag insertion. Firstly, remove the baseplate, followed by the spring and follower. My magazines came all oiled up, so it'll help to degrease if yours are the same. Next, you can inspect the magazine alongside the GHK one. Essentially, it's pretty straightforward. Just make the Bakelite look like the GHK magazine. That's it. You can utilise the front locking lug on the magazine, but you'll need to lose the rear one, as GHK will provide one as part of the rear of the gas tank, with its input and output valves. Begin by marking out a line under the feed lips, using the GHK magazine shell to guide you. This is something you don't have to worry too much about getting right, just as long as you cut off the feed lips so you can get the gas blowback internals in. Also, be sure to mark out the square cutout from the rear of the GHK shell onto your Bakelite shell. As you can see on this magazine, it has steel reinforcements on the feed lips, so it's going to be that little bit harder in removing them. Now, some generation Bakelite mags will come with this. The first example I bought didn't actually come with these reinforcements, and they were a little easier to work on. Feed lips removed, you can begin to cut out the rear portion of the Bakelite. As this area may be reinforced too, make sure you don't over trim once you have cut through the metal. Once you've made the square cutout, cleaned up the edges and compared to the GHK shell, what you may notice is by lining up the underside of the front locking lugs with the one on the GHK, you can see how far down the gas blowback internals need to be so that you get fully operational magazines. Too high and your working parts would jam on the top of the magazine. Too low and your compromises seal between the nozzle and rubber gas route on the magazine. On the Bakelite magazine I made earlier, I trimmed off a couple of millimeters so that the GHK feed lips from the internals were lined up correctly with the GHK mag that it was placed next to. From here, it'll be easier to take off the plastic feed chute from the gas blowback internals, so you can concentrate on getting the main bulk of it to fit. All it requires is 2 pins to be knocked out. You can now try to slip in the gas blowback internals. As you see, it'll go most of the way in, except of course the top section. This is where the real work comes in. File out the material from the interior walls of the Bakelite shell, so that the top of the GHK internals slide into place. As you progress, you will be able to seat the internals further and further into the void, until you're almost at that correct height. However, you may notice the sides of the Bakelite shell start to spread open. This is normal and only indicates to you of the areas which need to be scaled down. If you have those metal reinforcements on the sides, constant filing will eventually heat up and begin to separate from the Bakelite. You can then peel them off and discard. This will give you easier access to the raw material for removal. Be sure to show attention to the rear of the internal spine, trimming Bakelite and metal reinforcements as you go. Take it slow, remove the materials, insert the gas blowback internals, and try to inspect what parts need attention. As I touched upon earlier, it helps to have rounded off edges from the gas blowback internals. Where the rear gas tube attaches to the body, you can carefully file off an edge, so that when you fit the internals, it will slide in easier. Just as long as you don't file off too much, you won't compromise the gas seal. Bit by bit, you should see improvements. Trimming the fat on either side of the Bakelite magazine will help wrap around the GHK internals, and occasionally inserting it all into an AK will give you some bearing on how far left you need to go in terms of reduction. Bear in mind that it may be wise to strip out the bolt carrier for testing. At this stage of the project, I can now lock the magazine into place as well as the standard mag. Due to removing the side ridges of the internals, it's maintained a slim profile far better than my first version. The Mark I has a very tight fit. If you've gotten to this stage, good job. You probably look like you've eaten your weight in Cheetos. I was covered in the orange dust too. Don't worry, it'll wash off. Before finally tuning the alignment of the feed lips to the hop-up chamber, you'll need to widen the channel for the BB reservoir. This is probably the most difficult part, especially if you haven't got appropriate tools and you may be tempted to modify the BB reservoir in order for it to fit. I suggest against this, as you may run into feed jams later on down the line. The only part which needs to go on the feed chute is the base. To get the base plate onto the Bakelite magazines, the thick chunk of plastic needs to be cut off, but I'll get to that later. My only advice is to take it slow and carefully open up the channel on all sides, using files or perhaps even a small sharp chisel to shear off flakes of Bakelite. Remember, there is a metal reinforcement running down the front of the locking lug. Once you've filed away enough material where just the feed chute can slide along the channel with light resistance, that will be sufficient, and you can now reattach it to the main gas tank and insert the guts into the shell. Try it with the spring and follower, also with BBs to see if you're getting caught up anywhere. You will get to a point when you have successfully fit those gas blowback internals and it's able to lock into the AK as it should. All that's left is to fine tune the height in line with the hop-up chamber. You can do this by removing your nozzle from the AK carrier and locking it into the hop-up unit. Comparing the ride height between the standard AK mag and Bakelite magazine, you can use this method to determine if you're a little off either way. Mimicking the movement of the nozzle, you can test if it moves straight through between the feed lips and into the hop-up chamber. If it appears to flow smoothly, then it is time to try with the carrier assembled and charging the rifle. If you're tempted to pull the trigger, ouch. If it's out of alignment, you could damage the nozzle or magazine feed lips, and nobody wants that. Allow the working parts to glide into battery under its own steam. If you get hung up anywhere, you can disassemble and look again to see if the feed lip channel is in line with the ramp on the hop-up. If you have slowly and evenly filed away both sides of the Bakelite shell, you shouldn't have any issues. Likewise, the same will go for the permanent option 2, removal of the gas tank ledges. If you see the feed lips on the magazine is too high for successful chambering, you'll need to remove a mil or two off the front of the locking lug, and the same goes for the Bakelite ledge on the rear. Again, you can use a standard AKM magazine to match the level between the tops of the feed lips and the bottom face of the front lug. If they match to your eye, then you're done. They match to mine, and my eyes are ceramic. If you're getting a smooth action with positive chambering, it's now time to test fire. Success. The successful shots indicating a gas seal that's just as strong as it is with the original steel magazine is marvellous. Now let's try with BBs. As you can see, it cycles the BBs just fine. The action and even cyclic rate hasn't changed either, so this project is an overall success. All that is left to do is trim off the bottom of the BB feed chute in order for the base plate to fit. Of course, the original steel magazine shell comes with a built-in plate that allows you to screw in the internals. Unfortunately, I haven't attempted to create such a measure. Instead, the internals are held in place purely by the tight tolerances and requires much effort to extract. So I'm confident in using these for gaming. As the internals poke out at the bottom of the magazine a few millimeters, I had to allow for this by modifying the baseplate. Using a small hammer, I stamped out the baseplate, just enough to create a pocket for the internals to ride into. Not very elegant, but it works. Some of you may be wondering if option 2 magazine is backwards compatible with the original steel shell. Well, yes. Despite the trimmed sides, it still fits snugly within the metal shell and performs exactly the same as it did before. Switching over to Bakelite also reduces the weight of these AK mags. The steel one roughly weighs in at 700 grams, my first Bakelite version is 630 grams, and my second Bakelite is at 615 grams. I am absolutely delighted about what I've made up. Bakelite magazines are simply awesome, and completes that classic AK look. They are the original P-mags, that not only offer beautiful aesthetics, but are lighter and so much more comfortable to hold than the traditional steel mags due to the absence of that sharp spine. There are some guys out there that prefer the tactical look for your AKs. Yeah, I get it. Don't worry, you can also make one of these happen. And yes, it works. I suppose I could put together a video for the AKP Mag 2 if you'd like. Those of you with any questions, or if I may have missed something out, leave a comment down below. Or, if I've inspired you to make your own Bakelite mags, let me know how you get on. If you found this useful, why not hit the like, and if you haven't already, subscribe so you can keep up to date with my latest videos. I'd love it if you were to share this video with your fellow GHK AK users and start a trend of the awesome colour of Bakelite. You can also check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/badabingpictures, and until next time, I'll catch you later.